2, 3, 4.
Rev up your engines!
Kenneth Place says, hey, Scotty, what's the best used family vehicle under 10K? Well, I know what you mean by family vehicle. If you mean a car, get a Toyota Camry. It can run forever. They got a lot of room. If you need a van, get a Toyota Sienna. If you want a SUV, get a Toyota Highlander or a RAV4, depending on the size you want, if you can find them in that price range, because Toyotas do keep their value more. But still, it makes more sense to buy an older one for a lower price than it does to buy like a later model, say American SUV or car that you can get a lot cheaper, but it's not going to last as long. It's going to cost you more as it breaks down too. So you're better to pay a little bit more in the beginning and get a quality thing, or get an older one versus getting a newer one that's got lower quality for the same price. That's Sork 2000 says, I own a 2007 BMW Alpina D3, just turned 90,000 miles. Great shape. Wondering what your thoughts on it. I've never seen a video about one. Yeah, I don't have any customers with one, that's why. BMWs are interesting designs. They're fast cars. They're fun to drive. Generally, they fall apart in their money pits as they age. Now, you only got 90,000 miles in a car that's 13 years old, so you don't drive it all that much. If you want to continue to drive it not that much, go ahead. Just don't think that it's going to be trouble-free for 200,000-300,000 miles like a Toyota or a Honda. You're going to be putting some serious money into that. But, I mean, you own it, and if you tried selling a 13-year-old one with 90,000 miles, you're hardly going to get any money for it, so you might as well just keep it as a run-around car. I got customers, some of them have old BMWs, even old Mercedes that are 10, 15, 20 years old with lower mileage, and they keep them as a second car for weekends and stuff. It's just not a car you'd want to use for everyday commuting if you're driving 20, 30,000 miles a year. Juggin Finesse says, my car keeps turning off when I turn the key. What could be the reason? The battery? Could be lots of reasons. First, have your battery load tested and your alternator load tested. Most auto parts stores like AutoZone do that for free these days. Go get it tested. Simple. If your battery's got a certain amount of power, if it gets below a certain voltage parameter, a lot of things won't work and turn off these days. Everything's computer run. If your alternator doesn't charge the battery, you'll have the same problem. And they can test those things in 2 minutes at an auto parts store. Now, if it's not that, some cars, the ignition switch themselves go bad. Honda Accords, a decade or so ago, had a whole bunch of them where the ignition switches kept wearing out, and they do the same thing. You turn it, the car just goes dead. But do start with the battery and alternator. Always start at the logical point, work your way up. Cincinnati Kid 47 says, 2014 Toyota Highlander, 100,000 miles. They want 16.5. Is it a good price? Yeah, for the person selling it. I mean, come on now. I got customers. I had a customer just buy a Highlander. Now, it did have 167,000 miles on it, but he bought it for $5,500. It's a lot less than 16.5. I wouldn't pay that kind of money for a car with 100,000 miles. I just don't care. They can last a lot longer, yes, but you can get them a lot cheaper if you look around. You go by the mileage and not the year. So what if you're looking at one that's a 2009? Hey, say if it's got 80, 90,000 miles, it's just as good as the newer one with the same mileage, so what the heck? Try to find one a little bit cheaper. Paul McGancy says, typical life of a turbo on a new Civic Si 2020. I don't drive like a maniac. All right, well, it's new, so you can't say typical. They haven't been out, right? Honda was a later company to get into turbos, but from what I've seen, they waited a long time so they'd perfect them. I have yet to see a Honda turbo go out in any of my customers' cars, so that says something. I got a lot of customers with Hondas. I haven't seen a turbo go out yet. They seem to make pretty good turbos. Ditto for Toyota. I have yet to see a Toyota turbocharger break down. So, they seem to be using quality units. And you said you don't drive like a maniac. It's strange at less. Just change your oil out. Don't listen to any of the crap that anybody gives you. Use full synthetic oil and change it every 5. Don't change it 10. Change it every 5. Turbo spin at 100,000 RPMs, and your engine oil is also what's lubricating the turbocharger. So you want clean oil. Change it every 5, and it can last a long time. Edward Walder says, what do you think of Chevy 1500 with a 3-liter Duramax Diesel? Okay, I'm not a GM fan. Their diesel engines are a lot better than their gasoline engines. They make decent diesel engines. There's no arguing that. Ford's got a decent diesel in their trucks, and so does Chevrolet. I like the Fords a little bit better, but, I would never tell somebody to buy a GM with a gasoline engine. They don't have the quality they used to have. The diesels are better, but still, I'd get a Ford diesel long before I'd buy a Chevy diesel engine. Rodney Mohammed says, hey, Scotty, can you advise me the long-term effects of piston slap in a 2014 Hyundai Elantra GT? Yes, okay? Long-term is the engine will blow up eventually. Here's what piston slap is. Your piston goes up and down. There's a piston rod. that bolts to the crankshaft that spins it up and down so it can move up and down. When you get piston slap, generally it is the bearings on the bottom of the piston rod where it bolts onto the crankshaft. They get worn, then there's play. And since there's play, the piston literally slaps. So what you hear is, well, that's metal. Eventually, if you drive it and it keeps rattling, it will rattle so much that the metal will break and it'll blow a hole in the side of the engine. But these days, costs so much money to rebuild the engine, and a Hyundai Elantra engine, which isn't built the greatest to begin with, most people will never rebuild them. A lot of guys will just drive those things until they blow, and then they'll either junk the car or they'll buy a used engine from a salvage yard if they can find one that has lower mileage and go that route. Because rebuilding them is so expensive, hardly anybody knows how to do it correctly. If you do want to rebuild the engine, rebuild it now. Don't wait, because as it's slapping, more metal's wearing, and it would be cheaper to rebuild it now. Because if you do let it completely go and then it blows a hole in the side of the engine's shot, you can't rebuild it. James Self says, Scotty, is a Honda SUV a good buy? Yes. They're well-made vehicles. Now, the Toyotas are great buys. And the Hondas and Toyotas, you go back 3 decades, they were kind of battling head and neck over who makes the best cars in the world. But Honda slipped quite a bit compared to Toyota. If you ask any real honest mechanic, they'll tell you the same thing. Honda started using a bunch of plastic parts. They got problems with those Earth-Dream engines. They still make good engines. They make pretty good cars. But they've gone lower than Toyota has. Their SUVs are still decent vehicles. I've got customers with them, and they've had them for years. And, other than AC problems with the compressor, because the cheapskates use the compressor with the smaller diameter shaft, and the shafts would snap off, they're still pretty decent vehicles. Jack Rometta says, Scotty, what do you think of the 84 to 87 Nissan Z31 300ZXs? Well, they were great cars in their time, cutting edge, fast, speedy, but now, of course, they're old as the hills. I have had a few customers buy those things used, all ragged out, and thought, I'll restore it. And they found out how much money it was going to cost them to restore those cars. They wish they'd never bought them in the first place. Because you can put in tens of thousands of dollars, and then when you're done, you got a car that's worth $10,000. It's not a smart thing to do, I mean, if you could find one that didn't have a zillion miles and still ran decent, you want a toy, go right ahead. I don't tell people to think they're going to cheaply be able to fix up an old sporty car. To do it right usually isn't cheap, and a lot of times you put way too much money into a vehicle that isn't worth that much when you're done. Nathan Fisher says, Scotty, I'm looking at a 2019 used Taurus. What's your thoughts? Well, they're okay vehicles, but it's almost new. It's 2019. They're going to want way too much money for it. They're not making them anymore. They're discontinued. Ford is only going to be making trucks, SUVs, and a Mustang. That's it. So I wouldn't pay much money for a vehicle that they're not making anymore. If you can get a really good deal, it's low mileage, go ahead. But how can you get a really good deal? The thing's only 1 year old. So much money is owed on that thing. Nobody really goes out and pays cash for a brand new car. So it's probably financing, and so much money is owed on it, probably twice of what the car's worth, that you probably pay too much. I wouldn't buy it. Steve Zerzo says, Scotty, what are the best shock absorbers for a truck just for daily driving, some highway driving as well? Well, if you want a good ride, you're better with quality. I have had good luck over the years with KYB, the Japanese company, and they make shocks for all kinds of things. I had a customer the other day brought me a Kia, and the back was bouncing all over the place. Even though it only had 50,000 miles on it, it was only 3 years old, right? But it was made in Mexico with Mexican parts. I took off the rear shocks and put on KYB ones. Picked up the car. He sent me an email yesterday. He said, Scotty, thanks. This thing rides like a new car now. It's unbelievable. It didn't even ride that good when it was brand new. So that'll show putting the good KYB ones on and taking off the crappy Mexican-made ones made a big difference in the car. Willie Smith says, I got an Acura TL 2010 80K. I have no check engine light, but the scan tool reads ABS will lose communications above 30 miles an hour. Does it mean something serious? Never had a problem. What should I do? That means once you get over 30 miles an hour, your anti-lock braking system is not working right. It's lost communication. It's all done by computer wiring. They have bus lines, communication lines. They're very complicated stuff. Strangely enough, your ABS light isn't coming on. You said there's no lights. I would assume from that means the ABS isn't going to be working at above 30 miles an hour. Now, the big thing about ABS is you slam on the brakes and it doesn't pull one way or another. So, if it goes okay and you drive it, if no one's around, Test it out when you're somewhere where there's nobody around. Hit your brakes hard going fast when there's nobody around. It's safe. See if it goes straight or not. If it goes straight, why worry about it? Now, if it pulls a little or something, yeah, you'd have to go to an Acura mechanic, have them go through the whole ABS system. But stop's okay when you test it when there's no one around. What the heck? Cars have so much computer crap in them these days. I get cars that look beautiful, run fine. I can hook up one of those scan tools and I can find 67 different codes, and the people have been driving the cars that way for years.
So if you never want to miss another one of my new car repair videos, remember to ring that bell.